The 33rd President of the United States, Harry S. Truman, is often attributed to saying the quote, "It is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit." The expression speaks to the idea of selflessness and putting the team's goals above individual recognition. This quote seems less obvious that it would apply to the defensive end, as it's common to associate selflessness with sharing the ball with teammates on the offensive end. It's referred to as man-to-man defense, but a player is really only defending their man when the ball is in their possession. Outside of that, they have many responsibilities to their teammate that can change in a given moment based on what the other team is trying to do. Over the years, we've observed the attitudes of players in regards to defense and found that they can often be misguided. Some players may not take accountability for a loss because the players they were guarding did not score a lot of points. Parents may reinforce that thought process because their eyes saw the same. However, what most folks watching the game do not realize is there can be several breakdowns in communication, poor help side positioning, and failed rotations that can result in easily preventable baskets. Great defenders are often the unsung heroes because outside of blocks and steals, a lot of their efforts do not directly show up in the bottom line of a stat sheet. They have great footwork and positioning, active hands, discipline, and high basketball IQ, which allows them to anticipate effectively. A strong defensive effort can disrupt opponents' offense, force turnovers, and create transition scoring opportunities for a team. In order for a player to develop into a great defender, they must first master the basic fundamental skills. For starters, players must learn a proper defensive stance for when they're guarding the ball outside of the general painted area. Defensive stances change depending on where players and the ball are located on the court, so it's important they understand where the stance is used. A player who is guarding the ball's primary goal is to keep their body between the ball and the basket. Their ability to do so increases with having the correct stance to be able to move effectively. First, players must have a wide base for stability. Players should be standing with their feet shoulder width apart or slightly wider. Their knees should be bent to lower the center of gravity and be ready to move quickly in either direction. Their back should be straight with their butt down for stability, which should also enhance their readiness to react. Their hands should be up and out where appropriate, creating a larger defensive barrier. This also disrupts passing lanes, potentially generates steals, and allows defenders to contest shots more effectively. Eyes should be focused on the offensive player's midsection or core of the opponent's body. By keeping eyes fixated on this area, defenders can better anticipate movements and react more quickly. If done correctly, they are less likely to be deceived by ball fakes. There are different trains of thought as to where and try and force the offensive player with the ball. These are derived either from personal preference or could be dependent on personnel. Generally, for youth basketball, it's common to see coaches emphasize forcing offensive players to their weak hand. For example, if a player is right-handed, forcing them left. Some coaches may encourage forcing the offensive player to the sidelines, where it can act as another defender. Other coaches may encourage forcing the offensive player to the middle, where the help side may be more effective. If a player is guarding the ball close to the basket, their stance should no longer focus on being low with hands out, but rather getting tall with their hands straight up. It's imperative you teach and condition players to create a vertical barrier and to not break the plane. Oftentimes, this leads to silly fouls that could have otherwise been avoided. Feet can still be shoulder width apart and knees slightly bent to maintain balance, but the torso should be upright with the chest facing the offensive player. Players should avoid leaning forward or backward, as this can compromise balance and leverage. It's important that they use their lower body to establish a solid base to make it more difficult for the offense to merely back them down. If the players don't learn anything else on the defensive end, let it be this. For the players not guarding the ball, they must always be able to see both the man they are guarding and the basketball, regardless of where they are on the court in a defensive sequence. Seeing both, as it's often referred to, is leveraging peripheral vision, also known as side vision or indirect vision, with the appropriate positioning on the court to be in a position to help teammates should they get beat towards the basket. Players can be in a position to help and still be able to recover should their man get the ball. Lastly, communication is paramount on the defensive end, especially as the offensive sets become more difficult to cover through complex actions and progressive sequences. It's critical for players to start as early as they can with the idea of talking on defense. Players will be in a position where they'll need to communicate effectively with teammates to switch assignments, call out screens, and provide various supports on defense. Similar to other skills, Repetitive drills will immensely help players understand the concepts that are required to play effective defense. There are countless drills out there, but at Coach with Ease we like to focus on concepts and conditioning the key points we just emphasized. Drills are mostly meaningless without constantly emphasizing the key points discussed. Players must use proper defensive stances, always see both the ball and the player they are defending, be in a position to help, and communicate with teammates effectively. Team defense and help side emphasizes the importance of players focusing on their roles within the team's defensive scheme, rather than seeking personal glory. Teaching this effectively will be much more beneficial for your players' development than playing a basic zone defense. If taught well, your players won't chase around the offense like they're playing a game of tag, but will be forging the habits that will allow them to flourish defensively for years to come.